I'm glad you're able to join me for another Bible class. One of the things I want to talk about today is a problem that we all wrestle with. I think it's common to all humanity, and that is the problem of being judgmental, of judging one another. We were judgmental before we became Christians. This is part of being in the flesh. And unfortunately, many of us continue to be judgmental after we become Christians. It's so easy to divide ourselves up. If you are liberal, then find something conservative that you can attack, and then you can feel good about yourself. You can get on your pedestal of pride. And if you're on the right, then find something on the left you can attack, and you can feel good about yourself. And we get on that pedestal of pride, and we still feel so good about ourselves. We're so proud, and it's so easy to let pride take over and become judgmental about so many things. Of course, one of the better known passages of Scripture is in the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus said in Matthew 7, "Do not judge one another, lest you too be judged." Do not judge so that you will not be judged. I mean, people who don't know anything about Scripture understand that verse. Don't judge. But Jesus didn't stop right there. Did he just say don't judge at all? This is why it's important for us to always look at passages within the context in which they were written. Because Jesus continued to explain what he was meaning. He said, "For in the same way you judge, you will be judged, and by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' and behold, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." Now, in the context here, it doesn't appear that Jesus say don't judge at all, because sometimes we need to realize that there is a speck in our brother's eye. But don't judge until you've looked at your own sin. Don't judge until you look at yourself. The way we judge. Sometimes we judge harshly. We judge with self-righteousness. Don't judge until you look at yourself first, Jesus says. It's easy to jump to conclusions. It's easy to take a quick look and then jump to a conclusion and make a judgment about something. But there is a judgment here involved. Take that log out of your eye, and then you can see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. In fact, as you go down to Matthew 7, verse 15, he says, "Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles are they." We have to judge people's behavior. We have to look and see if their fruit is good or bad. We need to look and see whether their teaching is true or not. And so judging is part of our life. We have to judge between what is good and what is evil. In fact, John, the 7th chapter, John 7, verse 24, Jesus says this. He said, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. There is a way to judge that is righteous, he says. There is a right judgment. But there's also a wrong judgment. There's a great story in the Gospel of John, the next chapter from chapter 7, chapter 8, is the story of the adulterous woman. She was caught in adultery. And these vicious, harsh, religious leaders brought her to Jesus and said, the law demands that we put her to death, that we stone her to death. What do you say we do? And Jesus, he wrote on the ground and he looked up, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone. Are you looking at this in a self-righteous, proud way? Or are you looking at it with compassion? Are you looking at it in a more reasonable way? You know, religious people judge Jesus. That's what we see judging Jesus over and over. They were constantly judging Jesus. It wasn't the evil people who were outside of Judaism. It wasn't the heathens that were doing this. It was the religious leaders who judged Jesus over and over. But when we talk about judgment, there's several layers here, and that's what makes it so interesting. We're not to judge. We're not to judge with harsh judgment. We're not to judge people's motives. We're not to judge self-righteously. But there is a time when we need to judge. We need to judge whether somebody's teaching the truth or not, whether they're bearing good fruit or not. We need to judge whether people's behaviors are righteous or not. And so we add these layers one to another. There's another layer here that we can add, and that's in 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. Now, 1 Corinthians 5 starts off with a man who is sleeping with his father's wife. And now that has got to be a pretty gross situation right there. But then he goes on and he talks about this a little bit more. You see, they were not judging this man as being wrong and taking care of the problem. And what he says here in verse 9 is important. He says, I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people. I did not at all mean with the immoral people of this world, or with the covetous and swindlers, or with idolaters, for then you would have to go out of the world. But actually I wrote to you not to associate with any so-called brother, if he is an immoral person, or covetous, or idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or a swindler, not even to eat with such a one. For what do I have to do with judging outsiders? Do you not judge those who are within the church? But those who are outside God judges. Remove the wicked man from among yourselves. Now there's another layer of judgment. He says, why do you judge those outside of the church? Why does it surprise you that heathens act like heathens? Why does it surprise you that non-Christians are involved in sinful behavior? But those within the church who are involved in sinful behavior, we are to judge. In Matthew, the 18th chapter, Jesus says this, in 18:15 and following, if your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. But if he does not listen to you, take one or two more witnesses with you, so that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every fact will be confirmed. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Here Jesus is talking about a time to judge. If you see a brother sin, go and talk to him about him. If he repents, you've won your brother. And so there is a need to judge. But we need to be very careful about this. Another good passage to look at when we're talking about this is the book of Galatians, Galatians chapter 6. Beginning in verse 1, he says, Brethren, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself so that you too will not be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone, and not in regard to another. And that's getting right down to the brass tacks of the problem. We become proud. We want to boast. And so we say, hey, look at that person. At least I'm not that bad. At least I'm not doing that. We begin to judge. He says, don't do that. He says, if you see a brother sin, go to him in private and with a spirit of gentleness and looking to yourself. Look at your own sins first. Realize how easy it is to fall in sin. And then don't be tempted but restore him in the spirit of gentleness. We need to watch our attitude. Humility and gentleness and peacefulness should be qualities that characterize us as Christians. In Titus, the 3rd chapter, verse 2, Paul says, to not malign anyone, to not speak evil of anyone, but to be peaceable, gentle, showing every consideration for all men. We need to be careful in our judging one another. We have to watch out how we judge. And we judge those within the church, whether their behavior is right or not. And those outside the church, we'll let God take care of that. Why does it surprise us that they behave in the way they do? But even here, when we talk about judging those within the church, we have to be careful. There's another layer here. We have to watch our own attitude. Be careful that we aren't buffed up with pride and that we're doing that just to make ourselves look good. Make sure that we've looked at our own sin and we're not coming to them in self-righteousness. And now let's add even another layer to this discussion. In Romans, the 14th chapter, Paul continues talking about this idea of judging. He says in Romans 14, verse 1, now accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of passing judgment on his opinions. And then he begins this discussion. There's a difference of opinion about different things. He says, don't judge that person because of his opinions. In verse 10, as we continue through chapter 14, he says, but you, why do you judge your brother? Or you again, why do you regard your brother with contempt? For we'll all stand in the judgment seat of God. For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall give praise to God. So then each one of us will give an account of himself to God. Therefore, let us not judge one another anymore, but rather determine this, not to put an obstacle or a stumbling block in a brother's way. Here's that warning again. It's so easy to get into the habit of being judgmental in our outlook towards others. And this is what Jesus was saying. Don't judge others, lest you too be judged. Because the way you're judging is the way you're going to be judged. And it's not just a matter of saying, oh, they're doing the wrong thing. It's a matter of looking at their motives. It's a matter of looking at their opinions. It's a matter of looking at their judgments and saying, oh, that's wrong. What they're doing is wrong, when it might not necessarily be wrong. Another layer to this, even in the same discussion, is the book of James. James adds this to this context. James 4, beginning in verse 6, he says, but he gives a greater grace. Therefore, it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. It's talking about humility and not being proud. And then you come down to verse 10, humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and he will lift you up. And then in the following verse, do not speak against one another, brethren. He who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge of it. There's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you who judge your neighbor? Judgment is so many nuances here. It's a very complex topic. Don't judge a person's motives. Don't judge a person's opinions. Don't be so judgmental about things. Now, you can judge between right and wrong. You can judge a behavior that isn't proper. And if you see that, go to that person with a spirit of gentleness. But here he continues on, don't speak out against your brother. Don't judge him, because the law says don't judge somebody. And so there seems to be this nuance here. If you can't do it with humility, then don't do it. And usually it's our pride that causes us to judge one another. Now, we have been talking about progressive Christianity and people whose faith is being destroyed by this way of looking at Christianity. And I've been looking at different aspects of it. And the third aspect of this, here's their statement. The work of reconciliation should be valued over making judgments. And to that I say, amen. That is a true statement. We should not be making judgment. We should emphasize the work of reconciliation and forgiveness, of bringing people back into oneness and bringing people back into one group. It's wrong to be so judgmental. And so I agree with them. However, when you look into what they're teaching a little bit further, what they're saying, and when they talk about judgments, is you can't judge between what is right and what is wrong. It's wrong to judge behavior, is what they're going to say. It's wrong to judge that a homosexual, or adulterer, or a thief, or an idolater, whatever it might be, that they're wrong. They said, you can't do that. It's more important that we work on reconciliation and skip this judgment. You know, when you think we shouldn't judge, that statement's kind of a funny one, because that's a judgment within itself. It's a self-defeating statement. It's like saying, I don't speak one word of English. Or it's like saying, my brother is an only child. Those are self-defeating statements. They're just not true. On the very surface of things, they're not true. And so to say we shouldn't judge at all, that's just not true. We've got to judge between what's right and what's wrong. The question is your judgment true? In the book of Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, in Malachi chapter 2, Malachi is this wonderful book. I like to go through Malachi sometime with you. But Malachi chapter 2, verse 17, he says, you've wearied the Lord with your words. Yet you say, how have we wearied him? In that you say, everyone who does evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delights in them. Or where is the God of justice? And if God is a God of justice, why isn't he punishing us? And they're turning things around. They're saying that what is right is wrong, and what is wrong is right. And they're not making good judgments. You know, the irony here about progressive Christianity is often they're the most judgmental of all people. They're the angriest, most judgmental group you might ever run into. They express moral outrage against every grievance. All you got to do is look on social media. They're a highly sensitive group that is upset about everything. This aggression, it comes from the flesh. It's the same place where having a judgmental attitude comes from the flesh. And so on the surface, what they're saying is good. It's one that I want to follow, but underneath, it becomes a little bit more. You know, people, they'll say, well, Christians just need to be tolerant. Should Christians be tolerant? What does it mean to be tolerant? Well, tolerant means to hold your nose and put up with bad behavior. But we're not told to be tolerant. What we're told to do as Christians, what we're told to be is loving. Love reaches out, wants to help. Tolerance stops caring. Loving, it stops, it just says, leave me alone. Don't bother me. Be tolerant. Love, though, it is not that way. As parents, you know this is true. We're not tolerant of all of our children's behavior. Why aren't we tolerant of all our children's behavior? Because it's not a loving thing to do. It's unloving to be tolerant of all their behavior. Sometimes their behavior is wrong, and we need to, in love, talk to them about that behavior. It's easy what we need to be is easy on people and hard on sin. Reconciliation. The idea of reconciliation is to confess our sins, to agree with God that what I'm doing is wrong, and to repent of that wrong and live for God. It's so hard to be judgmental because we're all sinful folks. And so we have to be careful. Too often our fleshly self comes back, gives way to that Spirit of God that wants to dwell in us, and that flesh becomes so self-righteous and so proud. Instead, we have to have a relationship with God that is godly, that is filled with humility and grace and patience. I want to close with a story that Jesus told. And it's a good one here, and it's great in this context. Be careful how we judge one another and how we judge ourselves. It's found in Luke, the 18th chapter. And beginning in verse 9, it says, "And he also told this parable to some people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and viewed others with contempt. 2 men went into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and one a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself, 'God, I thank you I'm not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I pay tithes of all that I get.' But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, 'God, be merciful to me, the sinner.' I tell you, this man went to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted." I guess Jesus really gets to the bottom line of this judgmental thing about being proud. Too proud of our own sinful self, not recognizing that we're sinners in need of the grace of God, and to be patient with others. Yes, we can judge that their behavior is right or wrong. Yes, we can judge whether they are righteous or unrighteous. We can judge their teaching, whether it's true or false. But we better do it with love and patience and gentleness and kindness. I hope you have a great week.